With 2 of every chip in FPL this season, bench boosting in Game Week 1 is going to be a popular strategy. In today's video, I run through the pros and the cons of using your bench boost in Game Week 1 and run through my favourite draft so far that would set you up for a bench boost in Game Week 1. Hey everyone, Sam here, otherwise known as FPL Pricey. In today's video, I'll be running through what I believe will be a popular strategy to start off the FPL season, and that is bench boosting in Game Week 1. The reason I think it will be more popular than ever is because we've got 2 of those chips, so we have to use a bench boost in the first half of the season, whereas in the past you've only got 1, and more likely than not you'll use it around a double game week in the second half of the season. So I think it's an interesting thing that FPL have done there. Let me know in the comments below whether or not you are embracing the double chips, whether or not you think that's a good addition to the game. In the meantime, if you could leave a like and subscribe to the channel, you won't miss out on any future content if you hit that subscribe button, but the likes really do help me build my reach and find other FPL enthusiasts in the YouTube community. So I'd really appreciate if you could do both of those things. In the meantime, a quick summary of why bench boosting in Game Week 1 might be a popular strategy beyond just the fact that we have to use 1 in the first half of the season. So bench boosting in Game Week 1 has a number of key benefits. Number 1, unlimited transfers. You've effectively got a wild card going into Game Week 1. You can pick whichever 15 you want, so you can spread the funds around a little bit. You can pick an optimal 15 without having to take any hits. So point number 1 and point numbers 4 and 5 kind of tie into each other. You don't need to book in transfers. You don't need to worry about spreading your budget later on in the season because you've got it out of the way straight away. So the advantage of bench boost 1 is you've effectively got the wild card at the start of the season to pick exactly the 15 you would want. Numbers 2 and 3 kind of go together as well. You don't have no injuries and no rotation, but you've got less of both. There's no real reason why a manager would rotate in Game Week 1 other than they were maybe giving players in pre-season a few more minutes, and we've misread those minutes as an indication that they'll start in Game Week 1. But the locked players historically will probably remain locked in the starting 11 in Game Week 1. They'll 99 times out of 100, a manager will pick their preferred starting 11 in Game Week 1. So with a relative amount of certainty, we can pick a 15 that we're confident will start games. Now, obviously, injuries can occur, but you would say at the start of the season, there are less of them to contest with as well. So I've put point number 2, less injuries to deal with. Not quite no injuries, but unless they pull up in training the night before the game, we should have a good indication of which players are fit and ready to go for the start of the season. So again, points 2 and 3 kind of go together. Point number 6, just to wrap up, isn't really an objective reason to use a bench boost in Game Week 1 because everyone gets a bench boost at some point, right? But starting off the season on the front foot can be psychologically quite a positive thing to do. In FPL, it's all about momentum. If you can get off to a good start, if you can get ahead of your mini league rivals, it might just motivate you to keep going. If you're a manager who might get to Christmas and usually just sort of log off and forget about it, I get the feeling if you're watching this video, you're usually more engaged. But psychologically, even for an engaged manager, getting off to a good start, building that momentum and getting ahead of the crowd is quite a positive thing to do. So that is a subjective point. It's not one that I would maybe rely on as a reason to use a bench boost, but it might just sweeten the deal a little bit. It might just add that cherry on top as a good reason to get off to a hot start. Right then, so rather than staggering the reveal of this bench boost, I wanted to show it all to you all at once. I think that's only fair. So with a bench boost active in Game Week 1, obviously I'm spreading my funds across the 15. And one thing you'll notice as a difference from my first draft yesterday is that I've had to sacrifice that second premium to spread the funds around. So unfortunately, I couldn't make it work with both Salah and Palmer in my Game Week 1 bench boost side because I needed to use a little bit of the Palmer funds to spread around my 15 and give myself a bench that I'm a little bit more happy with. So Salah stays in my Game Week 1 side, is still my captain against Bournemouth at home. I think that's still a good fixture. And in fact, what I've done with this draft is I've doubled up on the Liverpool midfield with Florian Wirtz as well. 8.5 million, he is good value for money. He's got good underlying attacking data, running around a 0.66 XGI per 90 in the Bundesliga. You'd expect that to cross-pollinate to the Premier League pretty decently, 8.5 million. I think that's a nice downgrade I can get on board with from Palmer in game week 1. And I still think that gives me a player with good attacking upside without losing too much of that attacking data that Palmer has, of course. What that has meant that I can do is spread the funds around. So, of course, I need 2 playing goalkeepers. I've gone very fixture focused on those. So Vicario at home to Burnley and Areola away at Sunderland. So 2 promoted sides that they go up against. Unfortunately, Vicario isn't quite as nailed as I want him to be at the moment. So if I do want to go with a bench boost game week 1 side, I will have to revisit this and make sure that Vicario is nailed, because it looks like Kinski might be fighting him for that number 1 spot at Spurs at the moment. So I'll revisit that closer to the time. If it looks like Kinski's going to start, then that saves me another million, and I could use that elsewhere as well. So that could be interesting in of itself. But Vicario at home to Burnley, I don't expect Burnley to score many goals this season. That's also why I've got Van der Ven on my bench as a 4.5 million defender. I think he's good value for money on a bench boost. He could also get some defensive contribution points as well, and he's been known to score a goal or 2. So again, high clean sheet odds for Spurs at home to Burnley. They'll be tighter at the back under Thomas Frank. I like that. The same goes for my double West Ham defence away at Sunderland. Sunderland have been recruiting well. Because it's away at the Stadium of Light, I'm a little bit worried about this, but Areola and Wan-Bissaka both provide good value for money. I believe they both come in at 4.5 million. Wan-Bissaka certainly does anyway. So for just 9 million to get 2 defenders going up against a promoted side, albeit away from home, I think that's good value for money, especially because I've got only 100 million to play with. I need to try and find those value points wherever possible. So Wan-Bissaka, good on the defensive contribution points as well, and has been known to get attacking returns. Decent clean sheet odds for both of them, the goalkeeper and Wan-Bissaka. I think I can get on board with that as a combination for 9 million. The other 2 defenders in my starting 11, Gvardiol and Cucurella, 12 million as a combination. So I have spent a little bit more money in defence than with my regular game week 1 draft. Gvardiol has switched from Ait-Nouri. Gvardiol for me is just that nailed 90-minute man. You don't want to take any risks on a bench boost and have any sort of chance of rotation occurring. I do think Ait-Nouri starts game week 1, but I'm absolutely certain Gvardiol does. So if Ait-Nouri were to miss out, because I'm bench boosting, I can't rely on a Mykolenko coming off my bench and saving me, because I need to have him in my 15 anyway. So Gvardiol is just that security blanket. I know he'll play. He might get defensive contributions, and if I'm lucky, he might even play left back as well. So again, away at Wolves, who have lost Cunha, who have lost Ait-Nouri as well, they might be a little blunt going forward, and Man City have good defensive data. So I'm happy with him at the back, especially for just a 1 game week thing. Cucurella, similar logic, but maybe a slightly more advanced defender. He does get into the box. He does have decent underlying attacking data for a left back. And Crystal Palace, again, they're not a bad attack by any means, but it's a decent chance of a clean sheet. Chelsea's actual clean sheet odds are looking pretty good, and their defensive data last season was also not too shabby, although they were known to concede the odd goal that maybe they shouldn't have been expected to. So possibly a little bit worried there, but Cucurella's attacking upside, I think, balances that out, and I'm happy with him in my 15. Mykolenko's my final defender I haven't spoken about. Away at Leeds, I think Leeds have a decent chance of staying up and a decent chance of scoring against Everton as well. I don't think they're a bad side by any means, but I'm looking for value here. Mykolenko coming in at 5 million, I think is decent value for money. It's away against a promoted side, and I don't think there are too many other fixtures that I would bank on a clean sheet for. So given that Everton's defensive data is not too bad, I think Everton will be pretty well owned in game week 1 from a defensive point of view as well. I still think it's a good one to just cover me off on, but I'm willing to accept that there might be better value players out there for 5 million or even below. So give me a shout in the comments below if you think there's any other better 5 million options or below in game week 1 specifically that I should rely on a bench boost. Moving into my midfield, I've already talked about Salah and Wirtz. I think they're both locks on a bench boost in game week 1 for me. Ndiaye as well, away at Leeds, like I said, promoted side, good enough defensive data in the Championship, but that will be a struggle to match that up into the Premier League. So I expect Everton to score a goal or two. Ndiaye, not the best attacking data, but for 6.5 million, I'm happy with him on penalties, and he does get forward as well. So I'm happy he's classified as a midfielder. He's now getting that extra point for the goal that he didn't last season, and he's got the penalty bonus as well. So I think game week 1 against a promoted side, that makes a lot of sense. I'm going to say right now that Mitoma is probably the least locked of this 15, another 6.5 million option. And if I wasn't doubled up on Spurs defensively, and I'll talk about Solanke in a moment, then that spot for Mitoma could have become Kudus. But Fulham at home isn't the best fixture. What I'm looking for here is a 6.5 million option that I'm very confident will start, very confident will get 80 plus minutes and has decent attacking data. Mitoma ticks all of those boxes, and he's a player that I've got relatively high confidence in across multiple seasons of data now. So Mitoma, not the most exciting pick. I'm sure that there will be comments that can find me a really spicy 6.5 million midfielder that I like more than Mitoma. But for me, he is that conservative 6.5. He's always decently likely to get an attacking return, even against a Fulham. It's a home fixture. I expect him to start. I expect him to get good minutes. I don't hate it, but I'm sure there's someone else there that I'm missing. So let me know in the comments below if I am. On the bench, I've gone Elliot Anderson, 5.5 million. There are very few midfielders under 6 million or under even 6.5 million that I love the look of. But Elliot Anderson is a player that will tick along very nicely because he gets so many defensive contribution points. I think he would have got a net 40 positive difference last season if defensive contributions had counted. Because of that, I think he's a player that I can rely on to just tick over nicely, even as a fifth midfielder. And on a bench boost, I really don't mind that. I don't need to look for explosions here. I just need a steady Eddie pick that could get me 4 or 5 points. And he does get an attacking return on average once in every 4 to 5 games. So who knows? Maybe I get lucky there. And he not only gets some defensive contributions, but he also bags me an attacking return. At 5.5 million, I don't think there are too many more that I prefer. Maybe an Adingra, possibly at Sunderland, but because I'm doubled up on that West Ham defence, I don't really want to have too many competing parts. So for me, I think Anderson makes a lot of sense at home to Brentford, where I expect him to get those defensive contributions, and therefore I would imagine he gets a 4-point minimum. Obviously, that might not pan out the way that I want it to, given he does get yellow cards every now and then as well. But I think he's a decent steady Eddie pick at 5.5 million, and there aren't many others that around that sort of price point I would prefer, especially with a fixture like Brentford at home, who have lost players, who might be struggling at the start of the season under a new manager. With that in mind, let's talk quickly about my forward line as well. Chris Wood has also made it into my 15. So I've got double Nottingham Forest attack, if you'd count Anderson as an attacker. Wood, okay, last season we know he outperformed his underlying data. We know that maybe we shouldn't expect 20 Premier League goals and 200 points again this season, but he hasn't just turned into a useless striker overnight. We know he's got a good rate of return, and the data, even if he did outperform it, was still not that bad last season. Brentford at home, a fixture I expect Nottingham Forest to score a couple of goals in, especially considering the players that Brentford have lost and the fact they're under a new manager as well. I think Forest at home, it's a good fixture to be backing goals for, and Chris Wood is as likely as anyone to score goals in game week 1 with that sort of fixture. So for me, he makes sense at that price point at 7.5 million. I think that is perfectly acceptable on a bench boost in game week 1. I don't plan on holding him long term necessarily, but because I'm looking short term, that is a good fixture and I want to capitalize on it. The same goes for the other 2 strikers as well, by the way. Solanke at home to Burnley. I don't think I really need to say too much about why I think that's a good fixture. Yes, Burnley had good defensive data last season. It's going to be a big step up into the Premier League, and Spurs are a good attack. Solanke, and under Thomas Frank especially, should be a very good player to own this season, generally speaking, because I expect him to get a lot of very high XG chances under the new management and the new system that they'll play. So I think game week 1 at home to a promoted side, that's looking like a great fixture for Solanke on a bench boost. And then finally, Jarrod Bowen, who has been reclassified as a striker, and I think that does maybe damage his appeal a little bit generally as an FPL pick. We would expect him to get, I think, about 20 less points as a striker than he would have done last season as a midfielder. But Game week 1, I don't worry about how he is as an FPL pick across the season. I only really care about whether or not I think he'll score goals in game week 1. And away at Sunderland, I think he will. So I'm still backing him. He should be on penalties if Paquetá's not on the pitch, and he should be playing up front, or at least you'd hope so now that he's reclassified as a striker in FPL as well, especially. But you'd expect some good underlying data against Sunderland. It's a defence that you'd want to target in game week 1. At least you would expect. And it's a player that I've got a very high confidence that he gets 80 plus minutes in the match as well. So for me, there's a lot of security in this 15. There aren't too many minutes risks here. And I think this would set you up very nicely for a bench boost in game week 1. It's by no means perfect. And if I am going to bench boost in game week 1, I'll undoubtedly do more digging, more research, and more videos on it. But I think this starts me off from a nice point, and it's a draft that I'm happy to have to one side for now as a bench boost option for game week 1. However, there are negatives to bench boosting in game week 1. So perhaps let's have a look at what some of those negatives might be before we all start just pressing activate on the bench boost straight away. Right then, so there are also reasons why maybe bench boosting in game week 1 isn't necessarily the best idea. And this is actually currently the way that I'm swaying right now. So I'm not locked in on bench boosting or not, but these negatives are slightly putting me off right now. So first up, you've got less predictable lineups. So every season, we go into game week 1 thinking we know exactly what the starting 11 is going to be. However, there's usually one or two surprises. There's usually a player that we don't expect to start that does, or vice versa. Looking at Nkunku last season, for instance, although technically I think he did start game week 1. He wasn't locked after that though. But there's always a surprise in game week 1. And if you're bench boosting, you really need all of your 15 to be playing to make it effective. So because it's so early in the season, you've got slightly less predictability on lineups, although you've still got decent predictability, so don't let that put you off in isolation. But you've also got less reliable data on what the strongest teams are going to be for the season. So we're still working off of last season's data, and there are always new trends that emerge, new players that come out of nowhere. We don't know who the budget value gems are going to be right now as well. All of those answers come within the first 5 or 6 game weeks. So using your bench boost in game week 1, you're kind of going in without that knowledge. So you might get it all correct. You might be able to find yourself a bench boost that works really, really well. So don't let me put you off of it. But after 5 or 6 game weeks, it's likely that we'll find a 4.5 million defender or even midfielder or attacker that kind of breaks the player pool wide open, lets us spread money elsewhere, and maybe makes the bench boost more powerful at a later point. There's no guarantee that can happen because we don't know which players are going to come out of the woodwork yet. And it might end up being that bench boost in game week 1 was the most effective play, but we just don't know at the moment. So there's always that risk attached with the predictability of lineups and the data. Things can change season to season. So again, we just don't know for sure. Thirdly, it may force, or I think it's quite likely that it will force, an early wildcard that you'd have to then activate based on that limited information. So I will try to get across to a live screen of FPL Team. Again, fantastic site. I've linked it in the description below, all completely free, by the way. This is what my game week 1 bench boost side looks like, which is great. But you go across to next game week, and all of a sudden, it might not look so ideal. You've got Vicario away at Man City and Chelsea at home for West Ham. So already straight away, goalkeeper's a bit of a problem. Defensively, it's not perfect. You've got Wan-Bissaka at home to Chelsea, Van de Ven away at Man City, Brighton at home for Everton as well. It's not perfect. You've also in the midfield, you've got Salah and Wirtz, both away at Newcastle. You've got Everton away for Mitoma, Brighton at home for Ndiaye as well. Up front, a mixture of Chelsea at home, Man City away, Crystal Palace away. It's probably not ideal. So already, bench boost game week 1 might leave you with a bit of a problem in game week 2. And game week 3 is not looking much better either. You've got Man City at home for Brighton. You've got some away fixtures that are looking tough. You've got double Liverpool attack against Arsenal at home, Forest away for Bowen. Overall, it might not be ideal. You might be able to find a route that you really like for bench boosting in game week 1 and then not wildcarding in game week 2, 3, 4. But I think it's quite likely at this point in time that an early wildcard is on the cards if you bench boost in game week 1. Now, that's not to say that can't work. You can go ultra aggressive, bench boost 1, wildcard 2, and you might get it right. But you are doing it on limited information. And like I said earlier, there's still a chance that players that you're not aware of yet will come out of the woodwork in game weeks 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 that will break up the template, will make it a little bit more easy to pick a 15 that you love, and therefore wildcarding later might be more powerful than earlier on because you're doing it on limited information, limited data on which the best teams are this season as well. So those of you who wildcard a bit later might have an advantage over the players who do it earlier. Again, it's not an exact science. The wildcarders in game week 2 might end up being the ones that get the most profit out of it, but I think the risk is there. So it's just something to note. Fourth, 100 million budget to start off the season isn't ideal. It does limit the options on your bench boost. When you're playing it in the second half of the season, you don't worry about it or you don't notice it quite as much because you've got a lot more money in the bank. Usually anyway, you tend to. You usually have 105 to 106 million by that point, which gives you an extra premium instead of a mid-price midfielder, for instance, or a Haaland instead of a Watkins, perhaps. So with that in mind, bench boosting in game week 1 with just 100 million might limit your options a little bit and spread the funds quite thin. Whereas if you can hold off on the bench boost to something like game week 14, 15, 16, you might have 103, 104 million to play with, and it might make the bench boost ever so slightly more manageable with some stronger players across the 15. Again, not an exact science, and you might get a better bench boost out of a cheaper bunch of players, but the upside is there if you bench boost later on. Finally, number 5, I've talked about the benefits of bench boosting early psychologically, but if it goes wrong, it can also have a bit of a crushing effect as well. It can put you off a little bit. And if you, for whatever reason, don't have a great bench boost in game week 1, let's say a couple of your bench boost players are injured or maybe rotated, brought off early, or just don't get the points, you might not be that far ahead of the crowd after game week 1 anyway, and you've used a chip already. Look, it's not the end of the world, and bench boosting in the first half of the season is going to be less powerful than the bench boost in the second half of the season because of the lack of double game weeks, but it might just put you on the back foot a little bit. It might just put you off a little bit. And it just might not be the nicest thing to have to deal with after game week 1 is out the way, especially if you then need to wildcard early as well. So it's kind of double jeopardy. It could set you off on a really good path as well, by the way. So again, don't let me put you off, but it can also go the other way. So again, just want to note there, but I can see the benefits of bench boosting, and it's something I'm definitely open to. Let me know in the comments below whether you like my draft, what changes you would make, and whether or not bench boosting in game week 1 is something you're thinking of doing. If you enjoyed today's video, leave a like, hit subscribe, and importantly, hit that notification bell and you won't miss out on any other future preseason content. In the meantime, I'll see you next time, and good luck with your drafting.